Welcome to another episode of the Nuclear Medicine Molecular Medicine podcast. And this is coming from the virtual meeting of the Society of Nuclear Medicine 2020, not at New Orleans. In fact, it's virtual. So we've got somebody from Cologne and someone from Melbourne across on the opposite sides of the earth, which makes it interesting in terms of organising time zones for these things. But that's the way things are done these days. So we're talking to Dr. Hoenig. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but you can correct it in a second. But she gave a great award presentation for young investigator in the brain session on super Agers and what that meant and how that worked. But more importantly, and very excitedly, and congratulations, she's won the Image of the Year, the Nuclear Medicine Image of the Year Society. And it is the most prestigious prize that everybody wants. And I could be wrong, but I think you're definitely the youngest person to have ever won the Image of the Year. And for such a deserved topic, I think it's fantastic. It's a great thing. So perhaps we could start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about where you work.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm Merle Hoenig. This is the pronunciation of my name. You did well already. I work at the Institute of Nuclear Medicine at the Department of I work at the Department of Nuclear Medicine at the University Hospital Cologne, as well as the Research Center in Jülich. And I studied cognitive science as well as neuropsychology, and then followed up with a PhD at the Department of Nuclear Medicine. My supervisor was Professor Jeska, Alexander Jeska, and we worked on cognitive reserve in Alzheimer's disease patients. And from there we went on looking at super Agers, which brought us to the study I presented at the SNMMI conference this year. And I'm very delighted about being nominated or awarded with this prestigious prize. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I mean, super Agers are, I think we spend a lot of time looking at people that are unwell in terms of dealing with diseases. But actually, I think a lot of the clues, particularly when we're trying to prevent diseases, is to look at and in Alzheimer's disease, which most of us will get if we live old enough, I guess. What we really want to look at is the people who aren't going to get it, because that gives us a lot more information. And, there's been a recent FDA announcement, FDA filing for aducanumab, which was a therapy for Alzheimer's disease, an antibody that removes amyloid. And they looked at super Agers, didn't they, to get their antibody. And that antibody was removed from people who were resistant to getting Alzheimer's disease. So I think looking at super Agers, I think is a really fruitful way to maybe not only just look at Alzheimer's disease, but other diseases as well. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. So for many, many years, we're now looking for the cure of Alzheimer's disease, but we still haven't found it yet. But just looking at individuals who don't get a disease, not just Alzheimer's disease, but also not Parkinson's disease or other sorts of dementia, might actually give us a clue what promotes successful aging, right? Maybe we can identify certain genes that are associated with successful aging, or maybe certain epigenetics might explain that phenomenon, or even lifestyle factors that contribute to a successful aging process. And once we have identified certain pathways, we can use these pathways potentially to treat aging-associated diseases such as Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's or other forms of dementia.
Right. So how did you go about looking at super Agers? What groups did you start with? What groups of people did you start with?
Yeah. So first of all, we thought, well, we need a group of very old individuals, so over the age of 80 years. And then we thought of the ADNI database, so the Alzheimer's neuroimaging database, because we knew there are a lot of individuals who are above the age of 80. And then, we followed up and had a look how many of these individuals do have an amyloid and tau PET scan, and how many individuals actually performed above average over a 4-year period of time. And then we ended up with 25 individuals who showed an above average cognitive performance over a 4-year period of time, for whom we also had amyloid and tau PET scans available. And then we compared these individuals to normal Agers and MCI patients.
Right. What were the characteristics of these people? Did they for things like APOE as well in terms of genetic factors? Was there any difference in those groups?
We didn't see a significant difference. However, we saw a somehow lower frequency of APOE4 in the super Ager group, but it was not significantly different from the normal Ager group.
Okay.
But what we observed was that the super Agers showed a lower polygenic risk score in comparison to the MCI and normal Agers.
Okay. What did the polygenic risk score consist of?
ApoE and other genetic risk factors that have been identified previously. So this is a summary score of, I believe, 35 genetic risk genes. Yeah, and then you can use this score, to identify the level of genetic risk.
Okay, so how did you measure the tau and amyloid in these people?
So we first performed a voxel-wise whole brain comparison using SPM. And then we also followed up with a region of interest analysis looking at 5 meta-regions. So the hippocampus, precuneus, occipital region, frontal region, and what was the 5th one? I forgot. So 5 regions that we compared it across these groups. Right. Oh, and importantly, I forgot to say that we also included a group of younger healthy controls that were amyloid negative and around the age of 60. So we compared the super Agers to this younger healthy control group in order to have like a reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what did you find? What did you find in these 3 different groups?
Yeah. Shall I share the screen so I can show you what? Let's see if I can do that. Share screen. Oh, you should be able to see the image.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So what you can see, and it's, I guess, pretty obvious, that the super Agers didn't show any tau pathology when compared to the younger healthy controls, and also only very small clusters in terms of amyloid pathology. However, when we looked at the normal Agers, we did see a tau pathology pattern that resembled the MCI patients when compared to the younger controls. However, the precuneus seems to be spared in the normal Agers when compared to the MCI patients in terms of tau pathology, and also the normal Agers didn't show much more amyloid pathology when compared to the younger healthy control group. And in the MCI patients, we did observe the common pattern of tau pathology and amyloid pathology.
Right. What traces did you use for your tau and your amyloid?
We used AV 1451 for the tau pathology measurement and AV 45 for amyloid pathology.
Okay. So do you think the off-target binding a little in 1451 might have had some effect there?
Yeah, especially when we looked at the region of interest analysis, we didn't see any significant difference in terms of tau pathology in the hippocampus, and then we believe that is probably due to the off-target binding to the choroid plexus of AV 1451. Okay. And this may explain, that we didn't see any significant differences in the hippocampus. We probably should have looked at the entorhinal cortex instead.
Right. So what does this tell us?
Yeah, overall that the super Agers seem to resistant to both amyloid and tau pathology, and it's probably the resistance towards tau pathology that allows them to maintain their cognitive performance at such a high level. Because when we look at the normal Agers, we do see tau pathology, and we know they will decline eventually over time in their cognitive performance. So, but they were also amyloid negative in our case. So it's potentially tau pathology that drives the cognitive decline that we see also in normal aging. And the maintenance of cognitive function in successful aging due to the absence of tau pathology.
Okay, so what does this tell us in terms of in terms of potential therapies. There's been lots of talk about how really amyloid and tau are not important, or at least amyloid's not important, but perhaps they are still important, and perhaps they really do have a role to play in terms of these pathologies. And there's been increasingly numbers of anti-tau therapies and anti-tau studies being done as well. Do you think that we still need to investigate amyloid and tau, I think?
Of course, we do need to investigate also the synergistic effects of both amyloid and tau, because we see in MCI, once both are present, amyloid and tau, the cognitive decline is far more rapid compared to when individuals are only amyloid positive. But on the other hand, I believe when we identify these individuals who are resistant to amyloid and tau pathology, we again can look at other factors such as genetics or maybe lifestyle factors that promote the resistance towards tau and amyloid. Unfortunately, we cannot look at TDP-43 yet or alpha-synuclein. That would be great to investigate as well, whether these super-Agers are also resistant to other proteinopathies, despite amyloid and tau.
Right, and particularly, as you did say, some lack of tau change and tauopathies are present in other diseases other than Alzheimer's disease in terms of renal dementia.
Yeah, so that would be interesting to know. Maybe one day we have the perfect tracer or more tracers to look at, also TDP-43 and alpha-synuclein in these individuals.
Right. And I guess the other thing is that there can be multiple causes to tau accumulation. There can be multiple causes to amyloid accumulation. There probably are. So, or multiple, not so much causes, but multiple things healthy things that people can do to improve their amyloid clearance or tau clearance, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true. This was also an important factor in our study. We matched our groups according to the level of education, because usually super-Agers are also more or highly educated. But in our study, we wanted to have like a similar level of education in order to rule out any effects of so-called cognitive reserve. Which I haven't yet. But certainly factors like education or nutrition or physical exercise will play a crucial role in the successful aging trajectory.
Well, so we'd all like to successfully age. I mean, whether it's Nelson Mandela or
the Queen.
Queen Elizabeth. There's been many people who's function very well into their old age, and they're clearly super aging, and they've also got the benefit experience on their side. I'm not young myself, so I'd like to hope that we could all be super agers. I think that would be great. And if it's a matter of making sure these pathologies don't appear, then that's got to improve the quality of life, not just the quantity, right?
Sure, and maybe we can look at successful aging in two different ways. On one hand, we can look at the resistance towards these proteinopathies, but we can also look at the resilience towards these proteinopathies, which means that you can have amyloid and tau in your brain, but you still manage to maintain your cognitive function, and this is what we call resilience towards these proteinopathies. So I think this was a study which was published last year in Brain, where this showed that individuals who were amyloid positive but had a high FDG metabolism in the anterior cingulate cortex nevertheless managed to maintain their cognitive function even though they were 80 years or older. So this means maybe you can also have a resilience signature in your brain despite having amyloid or tau in your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to increase our numbers so that we can, in our research studies, so that we can figure out what factors are important and what aren't. And we should encourage our parents or grandparents to get involved in these things, I guess.
Definitely, yeah.
My mum is a volunteer, one of the healthy controls. She's in her 80s, and so she's still working. So I guess she might be qualified as a super ager.
Oh, yeah. That's impressive, yeah.
She's certainly not highly educated, but she's a lovely person.
Yeah, well, and as long as she's cognitively intact and still functioning, yeah, I
She
guess
certainly hasn't got any worse over the years.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Well, yeah.
But
I hope
I think we should encourage listeners to the podcast to enrol and help us out with our research. I think one of the key factors to successful research is volunteers to take part in these things, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we are currently setting up a study where we want to look at super ages and do PET imaging as well. But it's not that easy to recruit these individuals. Although I think once we found them, they will participate for sure.
Well, the publicity you've got from this study, which is looking at super ages, may help us recruit people into super aging studies and maybe ultra super ages. I mean, there are people in their 90s or hundreds who are still behaving well. It'd be great to look at those because part of the have you seen any evidence? I mean, part of the hypothesis that's come out around super ages is that once you get to an extreme old age, then all of the genetic factors, the multiple genetic factors or whatever that might contribute towards getting dementia have been expressed. So perhaps the onset of dementia might flatten at a very high age. Did you show any evidence of that?
Not yet. I mean, our group was pretty small.
Yes.
So we haven't followed up yet whether that's also something we want to do. We want to look at this group and look at their follow-up PET scans as well and cognitive function. I think so far there are 2 follow-up points for these groups.
Right, and so your average age was 84, wasn't it? 84?
Yeah. 80. Wait, let's see. I have the groups. Yep. 85 for the super ages.
Yeah. So that's not these days it's not an extreme age, 85. So
yeah.
So yes, there's plenty of years yet to follow up, I think, and longitudinal studies where you're trying to measure changes over a period of time presents a couple of challenges. One is if you're doing the scans a year apart, you're only looking at a few percent, even in unhealthy people. But in healthy people, any changes are going to be very small. So we need to improve our way we do PET scans. We need to improve the way we do. Simply doing scans good enough to see whether someone's AD or not is probably not good enough to do research. If we want to measure changes of 1 or 2% or very small changes, then we need to improve the precision about how we do PET scans, right?
That's true. Yeah. And we need longer follow-up periods. That's true as well.
Absolutely true. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So let's see. It's an exciting field of work, and I'm glad I had the chance to study these super ages using the ADNI data, and that's been exciting. And
I think the other thing is given the point of sharing data. Sharing data is really important in research. Being able to have researchers from around the world look at data is a way to improve the value of that data. We contribute in Australia. We contribute data to the ADNI database through ABLE ADNI, and Europe has had an equivalent study for ADNI as well, haven't they?
AMIPAD. Yeah.
Yes. AMIPAD. So yes, I think those kinds of studies, particularly where you have PET scans, which are measuring the things that seem to be the most predictive. We've had lots of big studies for MRI, right? But we haven't done as much in the PET world, and I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah, and it would be nice to replicate these results in a different group as well, a different cohort maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. That's excellent. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of what we've discussed here?
No, I'm just happy about the award. I just want to mention that again.
I'm happy about the award. You couldn't have gone for a more deserving person. I think you've done.
We couldn't believe it when we got the email, and we were really surprised and and honored, of course. And thank you.
Should be very honored, and I'm honored to be able to have you as part of the podcast, and thank you very much for taking part, and congratulations for being part of this. And I think this is going to seed a lot more really interesting research as we go forward. So thank you again for your contribution. And if you can get back down to Australia, please do. We've got a lot of colleagues to work with here as well.
Yeah, that would be great. I just have to convince my partner to come with me.
Yeah, well, beautiful countryside, surfing, everything else.
Surfing, koalas, and warm weather. Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time and talking to me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.